We are bones, taken from each other's rib cages, knit together in each other's wombs, moulded from earth and water, dripping clay, sculpted in God's own image. Our first inhale, her exhale. My child, you were not born from sin, but blessed by forbidden fruit so powerful the knowledge disarmed her. We do not know we are naked, limbs spread wide and free. We dance in our bodies and we are a garden. We celebrate our healing and God sees that we are good. After a long few days or weeks full of healings, Jesus is invited to dinner by a Pharisee named Simon. Jesus accepts, thankful but also weary of the hospitality extended to him as a spiritual teacher. His feet are sore and his stomach is empty. He looks forward to good food and friendship, but he knows there will be other elements at play. Jesus wonders if this Pharisee is after the status that comes with parading Jesus before his friends. He wonders if Simon wants to test this so-called prophet in a theological debate, or if the Pharisee is genuinely interested in community and conversation. When an exhausted Jesus arrives at Simon's house, he is not offered water to bathe his dusty feet. His host does not greet him with a kiss or anoint him with oil, as is the custom. Instead, Jesus is seated immediately at the table with the Pharisee and his friends. Jesus may be a guest, but he is not a welcome one. But Simon will play host tonight to one more guest than he bargained for. A woman from the city appears uninvited to stand by Jesus' feet. It's unclear how she came to be here, how far she travelled, whether she snuck in unnoticed or was let in. She carries with her an alabaster jar full of expensive perfume. Everyone present knows immediately that she is a sinner. Nameless and voiceless, this woman claims a place at Jesus' feet. A place that, as we heard from Radhika last week, symbolizes learning and discipleship. She begins to weep, openly and unashamedly, much to the discomfort of the Pharisee and his guests. Her tears fall onto Jesus' weary feet, and she wipes away the dirt with her own hair. She kisses them and lathers them in ointment from her alabaster jar, a confrontingly intimate act between strangers. We aren't told the nature of this woman's sin, but she seems to be known by those gathered as someone who carries public shame. She has likely been shunned by and outcast from her community. A common interpretation is that this woman is a sex worker, based on the sensual nature of her care for Jesus and the lavish ointment in her alabaster jar. However, there is no specific evidence in the text that her sin is a sexual one. There has long been a tradition within the church of describing this woman as promiscuous and improper, a paragon of sexual perversion, and as a way of dehumanizing and delegitimizing her. This tradition comes from Pope Gregory the Great, who in 1591 conflated this woman with Mary of Bethany, who anoints Jesus' head in John's Gospel, and with Mary Magdalene. He claimed that they were all one and the same person who partook in forbidden acts. The sensuality of this passage in Luke was exaggerated to the point where it has been used to discredit Mary Magdalene's key role as the first witness of the resurrected Jesus. If Mary Magdalene, one of the most prominent women of the Easter story and the apostle of apostles, had a shameful reputation, then her leadership and the leadership of women in the church could be questioned and suppressed. But this reading entirely misses the point of this passage. So it is incredibly important that we disentangle these three distinct women and honour their stories. The text doesn't tell us what moved this unnamed woman to join the gathering at Simon the Pharisee's house. Perhaps she had heard rumours that a prophet would eat there tonight. Perhaps she saw how tired Jesus was, how human Jesus was, and she knew how meaningful it would be to him to receive care from another person. Perhaps she had heard that this man was not afraid of bodies, no matter how much shame had been imposed upon them. Simon observes her bodily expression of loving care and twists it into a test of Jesus' character. If Jesus were truly a prophet, he would know that this woman is shrouded in shame, and he would shun her appropriately. If he were truly a prophet, Simon reasons, he would uphold the status quo, the prioritizing of certain kinds of bodies over others. But Jesus makes no move to stop this woman from bathing his feet. Instead, he gifts us a parable about debt and forgiveness. A certain creditor had two debtors. One owed him enough money to pay 500 days' wages, and the other owed him enough money for 50. We aren't told how these debts came to be or how the creditor amassed his wealth. But when the time came, neither debtor was able to pay back the creditor. In a fit of generosity, the creditor decided to cancel both debts. Rather than making some proclamation that the kingdom of heaven is like this, Jesus ends the story with a question. Now, which of them will love him more? Which debtor will love the creditor more now that their debts have been forgiven? Simon responds as we would expect, that of course the person who owed the most money now loves the creditor more. The weight of that debt would have a huge impact on a person's life. The lifting of it must feel like freedom. The creditor who once held power over both debtors has chosen to relinquish that power. Jesus affirms the Pharisees' answer and then grounds the parable firmly in the present. He turns toward the woman who has been weeping and bathing and anointing, who has shown so much care for a stranger. Even though his next words are to Simon, Jesus centers her in his gaze and his body language. He confronts the Pharisee by listing all the ways in which this woman has demonstrated love and care, which his host has not provided. Then he utters the most crucial sentence in this passage. Therefore, I tell you, her sins, which were many, have been forgiven. Hence, she has shown great love. In other translations, this reads, her sins, which were many, have been forgiven, for she loved much. Or, her sins, which were many, have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. This woman has carried a great debt, named here as sin, and knowing that she is forgiven, she bathes Jesus' feet out of love. Or, this woman carries great shame, and when she comes face to face with a prophet who sees her full humanity, she is moved to care for him in a way that recognizes his full humanity. Or, faith is not confined to sacred texts and scholarly debates. Faith is present in weary feet and gentle hands and a perfume that may have been used in sex work. Faith is present in the shattering of shame which tries to convince us that we are separated from God. Faith is present in the reconciliation of human bodies with their own holiness. I find that when I treat my body with care, it is easier to believe that my body is worthy of care. Practical action confronts us with the truth of our own holiness in a way that we can't reason ourselves out of. When we treat other people and their bodies with care and respect and love, we affirm their inherent worth. Through practical action, we are revealing to them the holiness of their own bodies. When we don't take the time to care for our bodies or to extend that care to the bodies of others, we instead affirm the messages of a society that tells us we are unworthy. A society that would have us prioritize certain types of bodies over others. We buy into this idea that we are only worthy of love if we are working, if we are white, if we are able-bodied, if we are neurotypical, if we are cisgender, heterosexual, and masculine. This idea that we are not enough. The truth is that we don't have to earn our worthiness by trying to squeeze ourselves into the restrictive boxes of patriarchy. Our bodies are already holy. I don't think it's a coincidence that Jesus will wash the feet of his disciples on Maundy Thursday. He is disarmed and affirmed by the woman in this passage, and he is moved to extend that same loving care to the people who have stayed by his side throughout his ministry, who will be loyal to him until they aren't. Before they fail him, he wants them to glimpse their own holiness as he washes their feet. Back at Simon the Pharisee's house, his guests are perplexed by this man Jesus who claims to be a prophet and associates with shameful women. Who is this who even forgives sins? They ask each other. For they know that only God has the power to forgive sins. Jesus' divinity is revealed to them in the way he receives and reciprocates care, in the way he witnesses this woman's humanity and meets it with forgiveness. Your faith has saved you, Jesus tells her. Go in peace. This woman has not uttered a single word during this entire passage. She doesn't regurgitate someone else's statement of belief or even participate in the conversation between Jesus and Simon. But she doesn't need to do any of these things for Jesus to know her faith. Her faith is expressed in and through her body, her tears, her hair, her hands. Her body is not a place of shame. It is her faith, and it is what saves her. Our bodies are not shameful. They are the vehicle of our salvation. Your sexuality is not shameful. It is the vehicle of your salvation. Your disability is not shameful. It is the vehicle of your salvation. Your gender is not shameful. It is the vehicle of your salvation. Your race is not shameful. It is the vehicle of your salvation. What if we were to embrace all the parts of ourselves that we have been taught to feel ashamed of? What if we were to embrace the parts of each other that we have been taught to feel ashamed of? What if we were to bring our whole selves to our relationship with God, bodies and all, and to express the love and forgiveness we receive by caring for each other as whole human beings? This community is full of people who have been told by churches that they are not enough, that who they are separates them from God, that they must divide themselves, compartmentalize their createdness in God's image in order to have access to salvation. But this woman shatters all of that. What is community but washing each other's weary feet, reminding each other to rest, doing a grocery run when a friend is sick, checking in about each other's pronouns, offering a meal and a hug when the world feels like too much? What is justice but daring to see the humanity through the shame? What is faith but pointing each other toward our inherent holiness? This is why we march at Mardi Gras, at trans rights rallies, for climate justice, to welcome refugees, for women's rights, because we believe that all bodies are worthy. Our relationship with God and with each other doesn't require us to sever parts of ourselves. It challenges us to do the opposite, to live wholly and authentically as ourselves, to transform our shame into love, and to support each other to do the same. Our task is to glimpse each other's full humanity and to name it divine, to wash each other's feet as an act of salvation. Amen.